everybody. This is another episode of Inspiring Women Today TV. My name is Rodney Miles Tabor. I am a writer, author, and very proudly the publisher of this book, Inspiring Women Today. This is the first full volume. We have a shorter volume here with 3 stories, which is actually 3 of the stories from this main book. What we're doing in this series is interviewing the women in the book. There are 16 interviews and a foreword by Chris Radish. And we launched the book on March 8th. Every year there'll be another launch of a new edition on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. I talk in the book about why I'm the publisher, how this came to be. I talk about in other videos, little background about the project and how it started and why there's a dude running a project of inspiring women. But I'm very glad you're here. I'm very proud of the book now that it's out. The feedback that we're getting is wonderful, actually, from compliments on how it came out to compliments on what it's doing for people. It's made a big difference. So today we're featuring author. Actually, she's not only an author by lieu of being featured in this book, but she's an author in her own right. She's a writer. She holds a special place in my heart and my mind. I've known her for, it's a decade is possible. We worked together when we were up and coming freelance writers back in the day, which seems like another life now that I think about it. But I was always very impressed by Christina. Her name is Christina DeBusk. I'll bring her on in a second. She was professional. We seemed to get along instantly and really well. And I'm looking for her chapter here. And I was very excited. I want to mention her chapter is chapter 6. It's called A Little Kindness by Christina DeBusk on page 77. I think, if I remember correctly, I had the idea to feature Christina in here. There we go. Before I was really very aware at all about what we ended up talking about in this book. Christina, to me, was already an inspiring woman. The simple fact that I'll let her explain her background, but she's got a very interesting background. We became Facebook friends, and she's the one with pictures of jumping out of airplanes and stuff. And it seemed like she and her husband seemed like kindred spirits on the other side of the country, where my wife and I were doing things we thought were adventurous. They were doing things they found adventurous over there. So I was thrilled when she agreed to be in the book. I then found out that she had donated a kidney, not to her sister or her mother or her daughter, but to someone she met. And that is the incredible story in her chapter, which I called A Little Kindness, which is kind of a downplay of a lot of kindness found in this chapter. Just amazing. All right, so I want to bring her on, everybody. This is Christina DeBusk. Please give her a warm welcome from wherever you are. Hey, Christina.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for such a nice introduction.
I'm getting better at them. But it's all, and it's all true. We are both professional writers, full-time, and I've had a lot of respect for you all throughout the years. I don't know anybody who turns around a deadline like you do, which if you're in the writing or creative business, you know what a rare compliment that is, what a rare thing that is. She's much better at it than I am, actually. And the fact that you live your life the way you do, I think is inspirational. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit where you grew up and maybe some influences, and then your not your resume, but the things. I know you were a police officer, and I think it's amazing. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Sure. So I started out in criminal justice type positions. So I went to school with the goal of working with the court systems. And so after graduation, I worked at a domestic violence shelter. I responded to scenes when spouses or mothers and children or fathers and children or siblings had domestic violence cases, I would go to the scene and meet with them and talk to them about what to expect in court and help collect evidence and things like that. And then I switched from that into working in the court system, where I transported prisoners for civil cases, showed up in court, testified about issues related to child support, parenting time, and custody. Did that for about 15 years. And at the same time was a reserve officer. So I went out on the road with fully deputized officers. The only difference was
You there? I
in
think
Michigan.
we froze up there for about 10 seconds.
Oh, well, okay. What's the last thing that you heard?
You were in the court system. You'd go to the scene of domestic violence situations. I think that's about where it froze up.
Okay. So after that, I transferred into the court system and started working on domestic cases. So I would show up in court and testify on issues relating to custody or parenting time or child support. I transported prisoners from all over the state of Michigan back to our home county. And I also worked at the same time, I was a reserve deputy with the local sheriff's department. So I would go out on the road with the full-time officers, same uniform, same job, just could not arrest without them there. And I worked part-time in the jail, so I kind of did a little bit of everything. But then after my now husband, then boyfriend, was offered a job in California, I decided that maybe it was time for a career change. I'd always had the notion that I wanted to spend my day writing, although I wasn't totally sure what. So when he took the job, I moved with him and decided to make myself a writer.
Really?
Which has been, I think it was about a year or two into that when we met.
Okay.
But just did a lot of, fortunately, I did connect with a successful marketer when I first started out. And so he sent me a bunch of books to read, and I taught myself how to write effectively.
Very cool. And is that about 10 years ago?
Yes, it's roughly about 10 years ago, yeah.
So I think we both kind of reinvented ourselves and ended up meeting on what was Elance back then, right?
Yep.
What had you always wanted to be a writer? Was that something you did throughout your life, here and there?
I'd always thought about it. I think I had this image in my head of sitting by this nice window with a cup of coffee and just typing out my words, which of course is not what a writing life is like. But I always loved that idea that you could take something that you know and maybe help someone else, which is, I think, partly why I've always been interested in health and wellness, but that is almost exclusively what I write about at this point is health and wellness.
Well, I have to say, when we were working together, there was a small Australian publisher that was basically asked me to help manage their writing projects because they were selling a lot of these small books to be created, and a lot of them needed ghostwriters. So that's how we met, and I found you, and you were one of the best writers in the stable, as we say, and the best, and clearly in certain ways. And anyway, I know that just was going to make a comment that when we parted ways, when that partnership that we were getting that work from disintegrated after a couple of years or a year or whatever. I was interested in what we did, what the different writers did. And I think, I know I went, the way I wanted to go was to work more on a deeper level with individual clients and do larger projects and, and only a couple of others, I would say, made very intelligent choices. And one of them, for example, really stayed on that freelance platform, but really took it to a whole level I didn't realize you could in terms of a career. But you, from what I watched, you niched yourself. You specialized in health writing, and I thought that was brilliant. It's of course what a lot of people say to do, and that old idea that by narrowing your focus, you're actually not losing business. You're gaining expertise and altitude in that particular area, and I've been very interested in that. As a matter of fact, it was that reason why I thought of you right away when I was working on a book with Dr. Rosado on medical cannabis, and I thought, wow, you instantly knew, you'd be a valuable addition to get your thoughts on that book, as one example. But it's neat. I like the way that we seem to touch base every 6 months or something. Either I send each other work, or also, actually, you're also the editor on Danny Tarkanian's biography of his father, A Rebel with a Cause, which I'm doing the audiobook for now, actually. And that turned out to be a really good book, a great book. So that's been very cool. And I think it's neat how you recreated yourself, right? I mean, it was an opportune time and you decided to get into writing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was definitely a process. There were many times where I thought, what am I doing? Or I'm not going to do this. About probably once every 2 years, I would find myself filling out applications at places because I'm thinking, I'm not going to make this. It's not going to work. And to your point about getting that niche topic or something to focus on, I thought that for the longest time because I did have the mindset that I was going to pigeon myself into a hole and not get work. And what I found is I naturally gravitated towards those projects because that is my interest. And by establishing myself as a health writer, I have now, my caseload is maxed. I could not accept another client if I wanted to time-wise. And so that by being that specific, I think that has helped me do that. But then the projects like the Hall of Fame coach, that book, to me, again, that's an interest of mine. I like sports. So it's fun to do those projects every once in a while just to give my mind something else to work on. And then I come back to the health and wellness.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I think that is inspirational right there. How many people dream of doing what we do as writers, and I can relate. I've filled out applications along the way. There's moments of doubt. I look back, actually, in my 40s, and I went back to college. I jumped around. I was trying to reinvent myself, but I wanted to be a writer, and my wife helped. Maybe that's why I'm the publisher of a series like this, because we couldn't have done it had she not been there to support me, or had I had otherwise a part-time job would have been necessary in the beginning when you're getting a penny a word. And I remember I was turned down for a waiter job, and it was.
I laugh because I also, like, I would apply at a grocery store chain and couldn't get a call back. And I think the most notable was probably 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years. It was an investigative officer position, perfect for me. And I could kind of miss being out in the field. So I made it to the second interview. And then I got the call, sorry, been beat out, but hey, can you write for us? And they're still my clients to this day.
Wow, no kidding.
So I think that things have a way of working out, not necessarily as you intended, but the way they should.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't mind adding that element of faith. That has a lot to do with it. I've especially lately seen how it plays a role. You see things differently. You see as I feel like sometimes, I've tended to go off to the side and I get a little smack, like, no, your highest best use is over here. We did it recently. We had a job, my wife and I, that lasted 3 weeks, and the biggest blessing of my life was what led to leaving that job. So that's very cool, and you talk about it in your chapter. So I thought that was fascinating. A life in criminal justice and helping domestic abuse victims, and that alone is worthy of inspiration. And then to reinvent yourself and become a writer, that's almost cliche. It's such a dream for so many people. I know, because we cater to people who need help with their books, and it's always an honor to be given that position of trust with what they're doing, even if it's their marketing materials and so on. It's interesting, but along the way, I found out you donated a kidney. Now, we don't have to recount the whole story, but you know what? Let me for a moment do this. I want to share for a moment as we segue. I'm sharing my screen here. As I understand, you have 4 books now on Amazon. Is that right?
It's actually supposed to be around 6.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't looked at it in a while, to be honest.
Well, with a quick search, I found these 4. I bought this one. It's a great book. I always wanted to write a book, 10 Easy to Follow Steps to Becoming a First-Time Author. How to Earn a Comfortable Living as a Freelance Writer. The 15-Minute Total Life Makeover. These are very cool books. And Becoming Kidney In-Laws, an honest look at what it's like to be a living kidney donor, by Christina DeBusk. I recommend all of these. I know Christina's writing. It's engaging. It's intelligent yet easy to read. And again, everything I think you put out has a real purpose to it. I haven't read this one. I remember it came out November 19th. I don't know if I just felt like I knew the story from your chapter, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than we discuss in our chapter.
That book is definitely the entire journey from the moment that I learned that she needed the kidney till after.
Wow.
So it is a more in-depth version. And that picture, actually, that's the necklace that she got me and gave to me the morning of the donation.
Wow. Anything you want to share about that, about how you do talk about it in the book, but how did you meet this woman, for example?
We actually had gone to school together. I graduated with her brother. And at the time, I didn't really know her when we were in school because she was a few years younger. But when I was working at the courthouse, a couple of times I would de-stress by going to massage. And she was a massage therapist. So we connected that way. And shortly thereafter became friends on Facebook, like a lot of people do. And one day, as I happened to be flipping through my news feed, someone had shared, they had linked or had mentioned her, and so it showed up on her page about her needing a kidney. And so instantly I thought, I have to do this because I'm a match. But I wasn't totally sure why I was so positive, because my sister had actually donated her kidney years before. And So I thought, am I thinking that I'm a match because my sister has done this? Which, come to find out later, it's not uncommon for people to just know when they're a match.
Wow.
So I started the donation process and was originally denied. They weren't totally satisfied with my numbers. They were fine for me living with 2 kidneys, but they were afraid what would happen if they took one of my kidneys. Would I be able to do okay with only one left? So originally I was denied, and then they contacted me. I'm forgetting time wise, but sometime later, 6 months to a year later, and said, hey, we've got a new test that's more specific that will tell us your kidney function. Would you be willing to do this? So I agreed, and we did the additional testing, and they approved me for the donation.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, and thank you. This story, it's a valuable, it's a different story. I think it's a gem inside Inspiring Women, and looking at, I mean, you almost have 100 pages on the full story in your own book. So I recommend them both for sure, actually.
I appreciate that. I don't, I get it. I get the concept of it being inspiring. I do understand that, but I don't look at what I did as anything other than, if this were my family member and someone was a match, I would hope that they would help. And
Yeah.
that is truly what it boiled down to, because the journey after you make that decision, for some people it's easy. It seems like some people are just like, yes, I am in, and they're all in, no hesitations. But I had hesitations along the way, which created an internal struggle with me, and many times made me question, who am I? What kind of person am I that I have this extra kidney that I can live without, and yet I'm thinking about not getting it? But I had concerns. I had concerns about taking time off, about healing process, about what happens if my other kidney just decides it doesn't want to work, and now I'm needing dialysis or a transplant. Or so it was a pretty emotional journey where several times I thought, man, I don't know if I can do this. But through it all, that's getting back to your faith. There were so many times that I thought, okay, just lead me down whatever path I'm supposed to go, God. Inevitably, something would happen, and I'd say, okay, that's definitely where I need to be. And so we donated. I actually, about a month ago, did my final 2-year interview with the hospital. It's been cleared, and I am now out on my own again.
Wow. Final checkup last month, you say?
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing that. I see it as an act of complete selflessness, of very profound service to others, and I like I like your chapter for so many reasons, and one of them is it is in, I don't know, under 10 pages, spiritual journey you seem to go through as well. In fact, I will mention that remember in there in your chapter, there's bona fide miracle, bona fide at least one. Should we leave that as a mystery for the readers?
You know, I think that we will, just because I don't know if I can talk about it without tearing up. So I think that would be a great thing.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that, just to be good marketers and entice people to read, but it's okay to tear up. That's not my concern. So what do you do today? Today you're writing, you're health writing, you've got a stable
Yep.
clients keeping you busy?
I am. I write for some publications, some written publications. Like I've been writing for Chiropractic Economics magazine for 8 years. So every month they send me articles that they want written. I have a couple of universities that I write for in the health and wellness space, and then one university that it's just basic. It can be on any type of program. That's kind of my outlet where if I want a day off from health and wellness, they're a good client for that. But most of my stuff is within the health and wellness space, although I do, like the client that I mentioned that I got earlier when I didn't get the investigative position, I write for them, and that is more like protecting yourself during these mass shootings and things like that, because it's happening more often nowadays. And after spending that much time in law enforcement, that's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. So like I said, I'm pretty maxed out right now, which is a great feeling to have.
Yeah. And I would say, I would assume fulfilling and rewarding because you're near or you're right in areas that are that you're passionate about. As a matter of fact,
Absolutely.
right? Part of the uh, a factor in deciding to do this project for me was the Me Too movement and the not necessarily jumping on board with that specifically, but the idea that we were in an age now where a lot more transparency is possible. So, for example, I would not that I break them into positives and negatives, but there's stories in the book about surviving sexual abuse, being diagnosed and proving it wrong, uh, things like this. But especially the things where people were bona fide victims, they come out and talk about it, I think is very brave. And that transparency, I think, is a big element, maybe a major element, or maybe the most important element in preventing certain things from happening again. Um, and I like that. So the writing about it was part of what went into the decision to do a book like this. And then it's complemented, you know, it's made diverse as far as subject matter with stories like your own. Um, are there are there issues today that you think are important that like you mentioned mass shootings and situations where we all need to be in a state of readiness or I've heard it said actually, it's funny, the name of your chapter is A Little Kindness. uh, I've been involved in circles that discuss modern situations, and you're talking about the global disintegration of certain factors of society that, I mean, major, deep, earth shaking kind of stuff. And one of the first solutions is kindness, is, you know, thinking of the person next to you, is patience, these very basic things. So I want to thank you for your example in extreme kindness.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, and I think definitely kindness, that there's, you always see the saying that you never know what someone is going through. And I think that keeping that in mind, that when you take the time to really talk to somebody and figure out what's going on in the world, you do tend to have more compassion. And I think that one of the major issues that I see, which is probably responsible for me no longer spending as much time on social media, is there's a huge rush to that. If you hear one little segment of someone's life, you now have judged everything else that they do. And you see it in the court cases where, or criminal actions, that the first thing that is reported is a rush to judgment on what happened. And I always think, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. And things don't happen in a vacuum. So I think that being not as judgmental, being open-minded about things is very important. But also, I think probably the biggest lesson I've learned, whether it's health and wellness or whether it was in the criminal justice field, is accountability. that if we hold ourselves accountable, we can start to live up to higher standards. I mean, we had this saying that was posted up in our lockup cell in the courthouse. It talked about the minute you start taking responsibility for your actions is when your life changes. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I try and get across with a lot of my health and wellness stuff is so many of our health issues nowadays can be prevented just by taking a preventive mindset, by not waiting till issues occur and taking positive steps before they need to be taken. And so I think that those are big factors as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially today. A lot of people are what they call headline readers. You know, you read a headline and you think you have the entire story, and that's not really the case. So, well,
That is true.
what is what's next for you? I know you're talking about a move to Florida, and you're going to continue writing, of course.
Absolutely. At this point, no real plans. I'm a little bit going with the flow at the moment. I right at this point, I would say my biggest priority is keeping up with my caseload.
Yeah,
And
caseload.
nothing in the as far as any more books or anything. Those kind of they come when they come. I don't make plans for when I'm going to write or publish a book. It's just got to kind of be something that when I get the idea in my head, then I decide to do it. But at this point, I'm more focused on helping other people promote their health and wellness businesses and going from there.
Very cool. I want to share your website for a moment. This is Christina M. Is it Mary?
Marie.
Marie, ChristinaMDeBusk.com. Here's her website, health writer and editor. I have, well, I believe kind of an ideal state for a book project, if someone's writing a book, is to get another set of eyes on your edit and to edit. That's the biggest mistake self-published people make, I believe, is not appreciating the importance of editing. And I can say with lots of certainty that experience, both as an editor and as someone who has hired editors. You know, back when we were on Elance, I interviewed maybe a dozen editors. I sent out a sample paragraph, and it was amazing the differences that you get back when you do that. But you are my favorite editor. I can say that. Lots of So is that if somebody wanted to reach you, that's the best way, probably the website?
That is definitely the best way.
Okay. It's Christina with a C, M as in Marie, DeBusk, DeBusk. And do you have a waiting list or something? I know you're booked up. And I know when we talk, when we have done work together, you're very cognizant of, you know, I got 2 weeks left on this project, you know, I'll be available in 3 weeks. You're the best in the business that I have met with estimations of time. And it's my weakest aspect of my practice. So I admire that a lot. It's a little awesome for me to see whether that's possible. Because we're in a business where what deadlines, you know? But it makes you a professional as well as a talented writer and editor.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool. Well, in closing, you know, if there's anything you want to add, absolutely. And as far as inspiring women today, you know, when I look around, I think there is sometimes a lack of positive inspiration. There are a lot of bad role models. It's almost like they're being sent at us intentionally. But so I appreciate you being a positive role model. It's a much needed thing. Is that what you think? If you could inspire anybody, who would you like to be an inspiration to?
I think it's a tough question to answer, but I would say that the people that I enjoy reaching the most are the ones who are close to giving up. The ones that for whatever reason, life feels heavy, like they're not going to be able to overcome their obstacles, or there's just too many challenges in their path. And man, if I can get one person to see that you can go way harder for way longer and be much stronger than what you ever think you are, then I think I've done my job.
Amen. That's really well put. I will say that I think the people that are making a positive impact today, and I'm not talking about celebrities, I'm talking about your friends on Facebook, the people you know through somebody else. You start seeing their posts or seeing them at the grocery store or something. They have a mindset of what you just said. If I can help one person. Now, I want you to know, right on that line, I did have a reader of Inspiring Women Today. I don't know what particular chapters, but she got back to me just out of the blue. She sent me a message and said, I want you to know that that book was the catalyst for me to finally seek help. And I don't know what she was going through. I get the sense that it was major. And we're friends on Facebook and social media, so I know she sounds much better. But she got through something very tough, and I'm very proud to think that our little book here had something to do with it, because she told me so. So you can enjoy that.
I think
As
that is great. And that is, that's honestly what I try and keep in mind, that just something as simple as the other day, I was going to the store and I got derailed on which store I could go to because one wasn't open. And so my whole day felt like it got screwed up. And then when I got to the one store and I was leaving and I came out and a woman was struggling, it was an older woman, and she was struggling to put a case of water in her car. So I stopped, got out of my car, offered to help, and she was just so appreciative that someone was there, because there was no way she was going to be able to get this from her motor scooter to her car. And I thought, all right, that's why my day got messed up. That it really wasn't messed up. I just had to be put in the right time. And so I think looking for those opportunities and not waiting for people to ask, but just stepping up and saying, hey, it looks like you need help. What can I do? I think that is huge.
Yeah, that little tiny act of kindness very often goes a lot further than you realize. I told a woman the other day, it was an older woman at the grocery store. She had her mask off, and I said, "It's great to see your face." And she just lit up, and I could tell it made her day. So whether no matter what it is, those little acts of kindness, a little kindness, goes a long, long way. Well, that's awesome, Christina. Thank you so much for what you do, for what you've done, for being so willing to share such a personal story in this book. I know that it's helped people already, and I know it'll help people for years to come. Again, if you want to find Christina, please do. Let her know she's made an impact for you and inspired you. Her website is ChristinaDeBusk.com. You can also, reach her or reach me through InspiringWomenToday.com. The book is Inspiring Women Today. It's on sale at Amazon. It's in an ebook. It's in a paperback. This is a full color copy with a hardcover that's available as well. And I want to thank Christina DeBusk again for everything. So make sure to subscribe to this channel. There are more interviews like this coming. And subscribe and sign up for emails too, because the next edition is in progress. The first interview is Monday for volume 2. And this is a woman who beat cancer naturally with natural methods. So anyway, Christina DeBusk, thanks so much. Anything you want to add, or
no, just thank you for putting it together and including me in your book.
Absolutely. Of course. Thanks so much, Christina. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please do subscribe and check out our other interviews. Have an awesome day.